some news or potential news coming up with Jim Harbaugh's situation. We've talked about it a lot over the last, 6, 7, 8 months now, ever since it was clear he was going to return for this season. Then it looks like, okay, maybe a contract is going to come. He deserves to be one of the highest paid coaches in the country. He ranks 12th right now. They came out with that USA Today report of all the coaches' salaries. And then, Chris, obviously you had a report this week, but also Joel Klatt going on the Colin Cowherd show, basically talking about what a lot of people around Ann Arbor know, is that there is some tension there between Jim Harbaugh, some of the Michigan administration there, as well as it seeping into, to use Joel Klatt's words, the self-imposed suspension, which he was obviously not happy about, and which, Chris, you have reported in the past as well. But the report this week over at the Wolverine that he may get a contract sooner than people thought, because it seemed like the NCAA thing was kind of going to be the holdup there.
Yeah, and like you've been saying all along, Clay, right? It's like, all right, well, wait a minute. And as some of my other colleagues have said, does that make any sense? Because the outcome's not going to be any different. He's not going to be paid any less, right? Even if they try to tack on a few game suspension, that's not going to keep them from giving him a new contract. So let's get this thing done. And I will say this: it's almost a case, I think, of the squeaky wheel gets the oil, because it has gotten back to the administration. And I think that they are hell-bent on getting this thing done. I know they are. And in fact, I know that the wheels are in motion here to get this thing done sooner than later. I fully expect Jim Harbaugh to be the highest paid coach in the Big Ten, or right there with Ryan Day when this is all said and done, from basically what my sources are telling me, which is absolutely 100% the way it should be, fellas, given what he has done for the university in terms of, not just prestige. And everybody says that athletics is the front door to a university, right? And you can kind of see it. And at the same time, the revenues that he's brought in and propping the school up like he has, there's just no reason to delay here. And even if he were thinking about flirting with the NFL, give him a reason not to, and let him know that he is wanted here. And I think that is firmly, I know that is firmly in motion at this point.
Yeah, and you go back to the Colin Cowherd segment with Joel Klatt, and we've been saying this for a while that obviously it's obvious there's some friction between Jim Harbaugh and Ward Manuel, and I just think when that makes its way to a national radio show that's going to get clipped, that's going to go around social media with the narrative being that there's friction between a guy who's delivered two of the best football seasons in program history, two of the most accomplished seasons going back to 1997 and all that. It's embarrassing. It's a terrible look for leadership. At some point, again, people ask, well, why is there friction? I mean, there's been so much success, and it really does kind of, it feels like it's been a bad faith negotiation, almost going back to that COVID season. I mean, from Jim Harbaugh's perspective, and I said this on the Huge Show yesterday, if you're Jim Harbaugh, you're sitting here thinking, you didn't believe in me, but you didn't have the balls to fire me. So you publicly humiliate me, slash my pay, cut it in half. I go out, I turn this thing around, I win games, I win Big Ten championships, I make our first two trips to the college football playoff. And then when it's time to kind of reward that or put money back in the pocket and make me one of the higher paid coaches in college football, there's almost like this attitude or this hubris about it, to where you should be grateful to be given a second chance in the first place. And that, this is what Michigan can do for you and all of that. And when it comes to Ward Manuel, I mean, I'll say it. I don't think I'm going to get anyone in trouble here. I mean, this is the same guy, the same administration that's had controversy surrounding how John Beilein left, how Eric Bakich left. I mean, Mel Pearson just kept clocking into work without a contract, like he was Milton from Office Space. So to me, it's beyond overdue to get something done. You see that list come out from USA Today this week where Jim Harbaugh is making like $8.2 million, and he's, I think, 13th in the country in total compensation or whatever it is. It's ridiculous. And the fact that we're still talking about this is, again, nobody shoots itself more in the foot than Michigan administration has over the years. And it's time to put an end to it. And if Jim Harbaugh is going to leave Michigan at some point to scratch the NFL itch, which I know is the perpetual narrative, let it be. Don't let it be because you didn't step up and and make your best offer and pay him what market value dictates he would be worth. So that's where I'm at with all this right now.
Yeah, and don't go there kicking and screaming, right? I mean, you should be proactive about it. And I'm not sitting here and going to say that Jim Harbaugh is a perfect human being and a perfect employee, because we've seen everywhere he's been, right? He pushes buttons and he approaches lines. But for God's sake, man, all this crappy NCAA stuff going on here that's been so overblown. I don't care what anybody says. It's ridiculous. And I think most people around the country know it, right? This guy is as clean as it comes. This guy, does things by the book for the most part and cares for his players. They're graduating at a high clip. There's absolutely no reason that he shouldn't already be one of the highest paid coaches in football. This is Michigan, for God's sake, right? And we've heard it all along. I remember when Lloyd Carr left, everybody saying, "Oh, Michigan recruits itself and anybody can win 9 or 10 games at Michigan." Well, guess what? That has been proven not to be true, especially in this environment. So now you got your guy. And if it were me, and I'm not the athletic director, and I know that there's more that goes into it, I'm saying I want you here for 10 years. You tell me what you need to make it happen. And I put my ego aside and I say, hey, you know what? You're my guy. Let me know what you want.
Yeah, I mean, he literally checks every single box. I mean, it sounds dramatic to say, but he was literally almost born to be in this role. I mean, he grew up around the program. His entire life has been football. He plays here. He's a Heisman finalist, and then he decides to come back from the NFL when he had other options to do this. I think you got to repay him in really any way you can. And I think he should be making more than Ryan Day. I think we've kind of seen what's happening. We'll see what happens in November. But either way, the fact that he's done what he's done the last 2 years especially has been incredible. And Chris, I totally agree with you. It's what can I do for you, basically. And I think that's the approach they should have had with the NCAA stuff with, why do a self-imposed suspension? I get maybe you're trying to protect him, right? But if you piss him off in the process, you could lose him. And that just seems kind of backwards to me. So that's kind of been my thought all the way along. And it seems, like positive news that this could get wrapped up in terms of a new contract coming up, soon, you would hope. But yeah, anything else on this whole situation?
Could I just one more comment on that? And it kind of serves as a segue to what I'm sure we'll talk about here with the Big Ten schedules is, you look at USC, Oregon, UCLA, Washington coming in, and you look at how these schedules stack up over the next few years. You need to pay this guy because ego and hubris and thinking that the grass could just, you could just take the baton and keep going. Ego and hubris is going to bury you in this new college football. You need to invest in your future, and the biggest investment you have is the bird you already have in hand. It doesn't have to be that complicated.